Hi, this is Kim with Mom's Creative Moments. Welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to have a walkabout through Fantasyland. Literally, we just sort of went from Galaxy's Edge through Fantasyland to the farthest edge of Fantasyland, which is, it's a small world, which will be something we'll tackle next week. But this is just sort of the highlights of just walking through Fantasyland. It's kind of a, I remember when my kids were small, Fantasyland was the place that we spent a lot of time. Dumbo, Mr. Toad, Snow White, the carousel. There was just a lot there for small imaginations. But all my kids are adults now, so it's not as much the focus anymore. So, but we couldn't ignore it, right? Because Dumbo is like a favorite. So we didn't go on the ride, but we did walk by it. We walked through and got some good pictures of the carousel and stuff. So that's what today is about. And it's going to be some paper crafting, so paper art, I mean. So I hope that you'll bear with me, because this one may take just a little while. Let's check out my workspace and get started. All right, so here's my workspace for today. And as I mentioned, we are working on a project today that is a lot more towards paper art than I normally lean, but although my husband says he thinks everything I do is paper art, but when I refer to paper art, I refer to the masterpiece, the mini masterpieces that so many talented artists, scrapbookers create for their pages, where they spend hours and hours on one palm tree or something, and then maybe put 2 photos on their page. My pages, you'll notice, are designed for a lot of photos, and that's because from the beginning of my experience with scrapbooking and learning this craft, that's what I have focused on. Whether it was because we were on a limited budget when we started, or simply because it's makes sense for me as a photo historian, from that standpoint, that these albums should be more about your photos. And if you get a great sense of satisfaction out of creating something from paper to put your photos on, then that's great. And some people are very, very good at it, and their albums are amazing. And I don't mean to discount that at all. I just know that I am not super great at it. So when you see me doing paper art, it's sometimes, for me, feels rudimentary, because it's nothing like what Martha Murray or many of the other paper crafting artists in the CM world are able to do. But for me, it works. And today's is a bit more on the upscale than what I normally do. So let me show you what we're going to do and move this right along, okay? We've talked about this and labored over this long enough. Let's talk about what I've got on my desktop. I have my CM border maker system. We're going to use 2 border makers today that you may have in your arsenal. Hopefully you do. We're going to use the Crown border maker cartridge. As you can see, it's shaped a little bit like the top of a crown would be. We're going to use the Notebook Edge, which is one that is fairly new, newer than the Crown, certainly. And you'll see why we're going to use that a little later. We're also going to use the flag punch. If you don't have one of these, it's okay. You can do this without the flag punch, but it will be much quicker with the flag punch. So if you have one, get it out. It's a great tool, and it will definitely make this layout faster for you. I'm going to use permanent and repositionable adhesive As you know, I keep those handy anytime I do a layout. I'm going to use my precision point scissors. I have a white jelly roll pen. I think they're jelly. It's a jelly roll. Yeah, white jelly roll pen. I have a Creative Memories dual tip silver pen, and I have this is a new tool that came out in the one of the recent secret boxes. I think it was the last one of last year. And this is a glitter pen that puts some gold glitter on your paper, and I'm excited to use this because I haven't really used this much. So this is going to be a fun thing to add to our design today. I also have I have my black pages, because you know I've been doing that for my Disney pages. I have a scrap of white cardstock we're going to cut a piece off of. I have 2 different shades of purple because that's the color I'm working with today. You can use any color that makes you happy, but you do need 2 shades of it, one darker than the other. This is Eggplant and deep, I think it's called deep purple. Then I have some gold shimmer paper, and I have a purple printed paper that we're going to use for some flags. I also have a piece of stone paper that came from the Enchanted Wizard collection, and you can see it's got the stars and moons on the back of it. That is what we're going to use to mount our photos, and so we'll cut into that one a little bit later. And so this is what we're going to be making today. This is the my hope is that it resembles the canopy for the castle in not the castle, but the carousel in Fantasyland in Disneyland. So this is the carousel, and I was trying to mimic the design that is right here around the top edge of the castle. And we are going to be making, you can see I've got half of a flag here. We're going to put another half of a flag on this side, and then there will be on the other page, it will look exactly like this with the other half of this flag and another flag on the end, on the edge. So at any rate, let me go ahead and jump into how we make this border here, because that's what takes the most time in today's lesson. So let me just set these aside. We'll get back to those in just a minute. I'm going to pull down my paper trimmer, and we're going to set the stone paper aside. Actually, I'm going to just set all of this up here. We'll pull it down one at a time as we need it. We're going to just scoot some of these things a little more out of the way so you can see my whole trimmer. There we go. Okay. Scoot that a little bit more. Okay. So you're going to take your scrap of white cardstock. It could be any color cardstock. It doesn't really matter. You need 2 inches, 2 by 12, a 2 by 12 piece of cardstock. And it actually may be helpful to you to have this cardstock be the same color of the canopy you're creating, because that way if your strips don't line up exactly, then you won't notice it as much. I'm going to take my eggplant, my eggplant cardstock, and I'm going to cut several pieces of this. I need 3 pieces of 1 by 12 inch eggplant cardstock, so, or whatever color you're going to use. 3 strips. Okay, so there's those 3 strips. And then I'm going to set that aside over here. I'm going to grab my darker purple. I think it's deep purple. I'll have to look that up, but I believe it's deep purple. We're going to do 2 1 by 12 inch strips of the deep purple. Okay. And actually, you may be able to just use one. You may not need two of that, but I'm cutting two just to be on the safe side. I'm going to grab my gold shimmer paper and I'm going to cut a 1/2 inch piece, a 1/2 by 12, 1/2 by 12 inch strip. Okay, setting that over here to this side. Then I need a piece of this that is 3/16 of an inch. 3/16 of an inch is going to be not quite to the edge of your gray mat. So in between the right hand dotted line on the gray mat and the edge of the gray mat is roughly 3/16. And that's how large of a piece of gold paper we need for that. I also forgot something, so we need to come back over here and grab your dark purple. And with the dark purple, I need a piece that is 1/4 of an inch wide by 12. Okay, so here's our dark purple 1/4 inch sheet, and I'm going to set that over here with the gold so it's out of the way. And I need a 1 inch piece of my printed paper. Okay, so that can sit over here also. Alright, so that should be all the pieces that we need for that. Now we're going to come back in here and we're going to cut some sections from our purple strips. And you do have to do these individually. I wish you could stack them, but really it's better if you just cut them all individual. Okay, so I'm going to cut that at 2.5 inches. I need two strips that are 1 by 2.5 inches. And if you are doing the full 2-page layout, you'll need 4 of these. Okay? Since I'm only doing half of the layout, I'm only cutting 2 of each of these measurements. You'll need 4 if you're doing a 2-page layout. Okay, so the first measurement is 2.5 by 1 inch, and the next measurement is 2 3/4 inch. And remember, this is the eggplant, so this is the lighter of the two purples. So 2 at 2 3/4 inch. There we go. Save this little piece that's left over. Just set it over there. Then we need 2 at 3 inches. There's our 2 at 3 inches, and we need 2 at 3 1/4. So we're going to do 3 1/4, and then we're going to take the remaining piece, which is not large enough to be 3 1/4. We're going to cut that in half. Basically, it's going to be roughly 1 3/8 by 1 3/8, or 1 3/8 by 1. 2 pieces that are 1 3/8 by 1. It's not really critical. You just need to cut that in half. Okay, then take your last strip of eggplant, and we need one more 3 1/4 inch piece. Okay, so there we go. Then just take this extra bit and set it over here with your other small pieces of eggplant. Now we're going to take one of the 1 by 12 dark purple or deep purple pieces. These we're going to cut 2 at 2 5/8. So here's 2 5/8. 2 5/8 is the long mark between 2.5 and 2 3/4. Hopefully that helps you. And this one is slightly longer than our first set, but not quite as long as our second set. So these fit right in there. So 2 5/8. We're going to do another one. Then we're going to do 2 strips cut at 2 7/8. 2 7/8 is the mark, the long mark just before the 3. So two marks before you get to 3 inches. I hope that makes sense. Okay, so we're going to cut 2, come on, slide, 2 pieces at that 2 7/8 mark. And then this 1-inch square that you have left over, you can just save for using another day. Okay, now we're going to take each one of these strips that we've cut and we're going to put a notch in them and make them into what looks like a flag. Okay, now if you have the flag maker, you're going to slide your strips right into that center channel, but I'm going to recommend you tip the flag maker over and slide your paper in only far enough that the corners of the paper hit the edge of the punched triangle area. Okay, you don't want to cut a full inch or so off of this piece of paper. You only want to put the notch in the end. So your triangle you're cutting should only be about that big. And you're going to do that for each one of these. If you don't have the flag punch, then you just need to cut your flag knowing that your notch starts right there at the corner. Okay, so, and we're not going to save these little tiny triangles that are cutting out, I'm just setting them out there. So if you're not familiar with how to cut these without the punch, let me just do one for you so that you are aware. Okay, you just take your piece of cardstock, you fold it very carefully, try not to put a crease in it, but if you put a crease in the center, then you put a crease in the center. Fold it, put these 2 corners together, start cutting from the outside corner towards the center, and I would go up just about 1/4 of an inch, and that's all the farther that you need to go. Okay, and there is your flag, and there is my triangle. So it's not quite as deep. Maybe go a little bit farther than 1/4 of an inch. Maybe go 3/8 of an inch deep. And just for uniformity, I'm going to go ahead and punch this one so that it's the same as the others. Okay, there we go. Okay, so I'm going to punch all of these and then I'll be back. Alright, so when you get down here to the shortest ones that are 2.5 inches, they are a little bit more tedious because they're the shortest ones, but as long as you're holding it on the other side with your fingers like that, then you can hold it where it needs to be so you can punch it and just pull it right back out of the punch when you're done. Alright, and I have these lined up on my trimmer here sort of for a reason. I feel like it's helpful because it sort of keeps them in order, and you're going to be grateful that you have that shortly here. So we only used one of our darker strips. You probably only need to cut one of the darker strips. When I was playing around with building this initially, I had more of the shadow in there, but we decided that it wasn't really critical. So I'm just putting just one line of adhesive about halfway down, or about 1.5 inches or so down from the flat edge on each of these, and I'm going to line them up right next to each other as we go down. I'm going to start with the longest pieces on the outside edge like this, and you may have to go back and readjust. That's why I'm using the repositionable adhesive to make things closer together, you may have to pick them up and adjust them slightly. But you're going to just add them together as cozy as you can make them, okay, as close as possible. Hopefully you are careful when you cut your strips, so your pieces are super straight, because that is really helpful in a procedure like this. Okay, so you're just going to add those and keep going, graduating in size. So 2 of the eggplants, and then 1 of the dark purple, and another eggplant, and another dark purple. Do your best to not let any of the base show. I can see with, I can see that I was a little bit short with that one, so I could see the edge of the white. I don't want to see the edge of the white. You don't want to see the edge of the white. You only want to see the purple. I'm going to just adjust that and make it a little bit more cozy, because I could see the white through in between. Which I don't want to do. I only want to see the purple. I hope this is fun for you. Once in a while I like to do things like this and build something fun and different for my page. It's not always quick and easy though, so it is good to remember to not expect it to be fast. Alright, so now we've got the basis for our canopy. Okay, now we're going to do some trimming really quickly. I'm going to take my permanent, my precision point scissors, and I'm going to trim up these the inside edges of each of these ribbons. And what I mean by that is I want them to have one point, and I want it to gradually be facing or working towards the center. So I'm going to take and cut the inside edge of each of these ribbons we just made, and cut it so that the angle matches the left side angle of the ribbon. I hope that's making sense. Then when you get halfway, you flip it upside down and do the same thing coming back from the other side. Okay, so right side of the ribbon I'm cutting with the same angle as the left side of the next ribbon. Because I want them to have a similar point. I don't want so many different jagged points to my canopy. Okay, so there we go. Now we have a little bit more uniformity there. Alright, now we're going to come in here with these extra pieces, those little these little extra pieces that I told you to save, right? I'm going to take just a little bit of repositionable adhesive and go kind of at an angle across there so that I can put this on my trimmer and cut these into 1/4 inch strips. Okay, and I realize this gets a little tedious. Sorry about that. But is kind of the nature of paper crafting, right? Sometimes it gets a little tedious. All right, so here we've got one. I'm just going to scooch this over, and I'm going to cut a bunch of these because I want one for every point on my canopy. So we're just cutting it into 1/4 inch pieces, and ideally you should have 4 pieces for each one of these pieces that you have here. This one's going to be a little bit wide, which means I probably skimped on some of those other pieces, but that's just a teeny little bit of a variance. I didn't add any adhesive to this one, but there's enough still stuck to my trimmer that it's holding in place. I only put the adhesive on there so that when I put this down, it's such a small little piece, I don't want it to shift. And so by adding a little repositionable adhesive, it helps this paper not shift when I'm trying to cut it. Alright, so how many we need? We need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 of these pieces. Now that's the good news. The not so great news, well, I mean, the obvious news, I guess, if you are a math person, is that we are only getting 4 out of each of these 3 pieces. So that means we are going to need to cut another piece. That's why I had you hold this piece out, not put it in your scrap area just yet, because we're going to use it. Alright, so we're just going to take this piece right here, and I'm just going to cut about roughly 1 inch of it off. And we're going to just cut 1/4 inch of that off. So we have another 1/4 inch strip. Alright, so that should be all the pieces we need for right now. So I'm going to move that up there. Don't put it too far away though, because you will probably need it again shortly. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to add some repositionable adhesive to half of each of these little strips. I'm having you do it all at one time because I think it's faster than doing each one, having to pick up your adhesive and add the adhesive. Okay, now we're going to go, I'm turning mine this way because I feel like it's easier to see. Pick up each of these strips on the non-adhesive side. You're going to add it in, and you're going to make sure that it is roughly 1/2 inch longer than the tip of the point that you're adding it to. And you're not worried about where, so like for this one, the tip of that is not centered. I'm not concerned about it being centered. If that's going to bother you, then maybe this isn't the best layout for you to do, because, or maybe you can figure out another way to do yours where it makes you happy. But I'm not centering the points, and I'm not lining these up with the seams of my 1-inch strips either. I am simply putting them where it feels like they should be. I don't know how else to do that. I usually try to give you some reasonable notion so you can repeat what I'm doing, but if you can see what I'm doing here, it is I'm just making a fringe that extends this point down just a little bit. And it's not going, I'm not worried about it matching exactly for several reasons. One is because I've used two different colors of purple. So on the points where the two different colors of purple come together, it's going to look a little unusual if I line up my fringe with one side or the other. The spacing in between them is going to be very wonky if I do that. And I'm not really worried about it being exact, the spacing in between. I just want my fringe to be relatively straight. I can't make sure that it's super perfect, because I have other things to do with my day. And I know that may be lame, but that's the way it is. You have other things to do with your day too. You don't need to do it to spend all of your time trying to make these absolutely perfect. Plus it's fringe, you know. Fringe is going to be a little irregular. It's okay. That one sticks out probably a little farther than I want it to. Sometimes these interfere, they hit the that base cardstock that you are adhering everything to on the back, so you have to just play with them just a little to get them to go where you want. And remember, there is an arc we're dealing with too, so they shouldn't be straight this way, because that wouldn't be accurate. Okay, one more. I'm just going to line this one up with the very edge of my border. I want that to stick down just a little further. Alright, like so. Okay, now I'm going to come back in here with my precision point scissors, and I'm going to make a point from each of these itty bitty ends. So start in the center and just cut at an angle and go all the way across. So I'm beginning my cut from the center of the short end of these little extensions and just kind of cutting at about a 45-degree angle. Give or take. Going to go all the way across, then we're going to flip it upside down and go all the way back. Okay, so now we're flipping it over, and we're going to do the same angle all the way back, best you can. These will be a little bit wonky, a little unique, and that's okay. Oh, I missed that one. Funny. right, there we go. Now we have the basic shape of our canopy. So let me show this to you again, and then we're going to do some punching. Okay, so here's the basic shape of our canopy, and we are ready to punch the crown that goes across the top. So let's grab our border maker and grab the gold shimmer paper. We're going to go ahead and punch one strip, or of course you'll need 2 strips if you're doing a 2-page layout, right? Since I've already done half, I only need to do 1. This is the crown border maker cartridge. If you've not used our border maker system before, this might be new for you. And I do have videos on my channel that explain how this works. It's absolutely one of my favorite Creative Memories tools. Super fast, very easy, and very economical. Because you are, rather than paying for a whole one punch that's going to stay on your shelf, you're just paying for this little cartridge each time, and each time you want a new design, and that's it. Alright, I see that I did a flaw here, so I'm just going to kind of tidy that up just a little. My punching got a little bit excited, so that one's going to be kind of flattened, but oh well, that's the way it is. Okay, I'm going to put the tips of the crowns at the 1-inch mark and then trim this off. Okay. Now what we're going to do is go ahead and add some adhesive, repositionable adhesive, down the edge of the crown, and I'm going to take my canopy and attach it. And I want to leave, let me just double check and make sure that I'm doing this the same. I want to leave roughly 1/8 of an inch, maybe just shy of 1/8 of an inch below the low swoop, below the dip in the crown, because I kind of goofed up and didn't punch that one completely accurately because I was in a hurry. I was getting excited, right? Then I won't have that consistency all the way across. But it should still work for my needs for this layout. This one I need to fix also, so give me just a second here. Just gonna cut that off. Okay, once you have the crown attached to the top, you're going to take this dark piece of purple, deep purple, and you're going to put repositionable adhesive all the way down it. I put it in about 5 places. Then I put this over the edge of where my crown and my canopy come together. Just finishes that edge off nicely. Okay, Now what we're going to do is we're going to take some of our glitter pen and we're going to do a little bit of fun work. Multimedia, what do they call that? So I don't know if you can see this on camera very well, but I did add the glitter pen down each of the seams. I didn't do it in the center, but I did go down each of the outer seams on the canopy. Can you see that very well? It's not meant to be bold. It's very, very subtle. Okay, so down the center and all the way to the tip of the fringe piece that comes off the bottom. Okay, so let me show you. You're just going to very lightly come straight up the center. And if you didn't, like this fringe piece is not centered with my seams, so I'm just kind of draw my own conclusions up to the top. Don't go into that your dark bar that goes across. You want it to just be from the bottom up. And the ones that are on the very edge, I only did the extension piece. And you want it to be just very subtle, just a very, very narrow piece. Just squeeze a little bit of that out as you go. And use that seam as your guide so that your line is fairly straight. Oh, that's my center. I don't want to go all the way up the middle. Have you used your glitter pen? If you got this in your secret box, have you used it very much? I'd love to know what you used yours for. Because I have kept it out here on my desk and thought to myself, I really need to use that. It's such a cool tool. I need to use that. But oops. All right, I had a little bubble. And I don't want well, it's just going to dry that way. The glitter in this glitter fluid is so fine that it's impossible to get up once it spills, so just try to be careful not to over squeeze the pen, because that's what I just did and it kind of blurped out, but that'll probably be covered by my flag, so I'm not too overly concerned about it. So just something to be careful of. If you don't have a glitter pen like this, you could use a silver pen to mark it. You could also use your silver pen or just to add this little highlight. I would try to be very, very thin about it, and I would use a ruler if you're going to use a marker. I'm going to use my white pen to just draw a quick stitch outline. And this is going to take a few minutes, so I'm going to speed it up. I'm going to speed it up on the video, but we're going to do a stitch outline that just goes around the base of this and across the dark piece at the top. So I'll see you when I'm done with that. Okay, I would use your zero centering ruler to do the main one down the center. You're just going to find the center of that 1/4 inch piece. It's very, very narrow, and go maybe just a hair to the left of that, and then you're going to just take your gel pen and do a stitch. This stitch is going to be bigger than the stitch that went around the lower part, because this is making more of a statement. The other stitch is just tiny, so I make this one larger. It's more like an eighth. Each stitch is about 1/8 of an inch wide. See how you can see that? So much bolder. Okay. Anyway, just a little bit of an artsy touch for that. Okay, now what we're going to do is jump in here and quickly make a couple of flags. So grab your trimmer and grab that floral or printed piece of paper that we cut a strip out of, and we want 2 3.5 inch strips from this. So there's one 3.5 inch, and here's the second one that's 3.5 inches. Okay, then we're going to take those 2 strips, we're going to put them back to back or front to front, however you would like to do it. And we're going to cut from this right-hand corner, to halfway down or halfway across the bottom inch. So the 1.5 inch mark here. So right-hand corner to 1/2 inch. Let me show you what I mean. You put that right-hand corner on the cutting line right here, and then scooch this over until your cutting line is halfway across the base. Okay? You may have to adjust the top back over to make sure that that tip is still on the cutting line. All right? Now, because this is so narrow, I sometimes have to hold on to it. I'm going to cut it slowly so it doesn't shift. Okay? And we're just cutting this portion off. Okay? Because we're kind of making like a medieval banner with this. Now what we're going to do is I'm going to take my border maker and I'm going to use the notebook. What does it say? Notebook edge. The notebook edge punch. Pop that in. I'm going to flip this over so I can see the underneath part. Okay? And I'm going to take each one of these and I'm going to put the fat end, the wider end, underneath here. And this is going to be a little bit difficult for you to see on camera, but I'm going to try and work this out for you. Okay? So I'm going to place that in there. Let me see if I can refocus it so you can see. So the edge of the paper is right at the top of the punched edge. Okay? And it's centered between those little teeth that are coming up. So that when we punch it, we end up, let's see, how is it best for you to see? There, that's probably better. We end up with little teeth. Little, essentially like little loops for a rod to go through. That's what I was trying to create from the paper. Okay, so I'm going to do that to both sides. I'm going to bring this piece in, line it up so that the top of the paper is right at the top of those, the flat edge of what gets punched, right? And then we end up with that. Okay, and I'm going to use the floral side of this, I think. Well, I used the floral side of the other one. Maybe we ought to use the striped side this time around so that we have different flags. Okay, let's go ahead and add our... Oh, we're not ready to do that yet. I'm sorry. I'm excited and I'm getting the cart before the horse, as they say. Okay, we'll just set that to the side. Grab your 1/2-inch piece of gold shimmer paper and add some adhesive about 3 inches down that end. Okay, then you're going to take, oh, and before you do that, before we adhere that, wow, I'm sorry guys, I'm just like, I guess I'm really excited about this. Okay, so we're going to take our thinner piece, we're going to add some adhesive to the punched edge of our flags. Okay, and we're going to, I'm going to take, let's see, I'm going to extend that out. The flat edge goes right along the flat edge of the gold. I'm not explaining this very well for you today, and I'm sorry about that. You go about 1/8 of an inch beyond on the corner right here, and the flat edge of what we just punched goes right along the flat edge of your gold piece. Okay? Then you're going to take the next piece, this piece, and you're going to add that in, but you're going to leave a gap of about 1/4 of an inch. Okay, so leave a gap. About 1/4 of an inch, just like that. All right, then you're going to use this to be able to lay this on top of here. And you want to give about 3/8 of an inch from the top, from the end of your 1/2-inch piece of paper. And make sure you can lay each side of that flag on top of your 1/2-inch piece. Okay, because you want your adhesive to grab it. And very carefully smooth that paper out so that you know it's glued together all the way down. Then you can go ahead and just rub that adhesive off that didn't get it used. And if it makes you more comfortable, you can add your repositionable adhesive to the back of the flag portion. Whatever makes you happy. I feel like you use just as much adhesive doing it that way, but it's up to you. Okay, now I'm going to come in here with my precision point adhesive or precision point scissors and go ahead and trim this off just a little bit beyond the flag. I'm going to grab my trimmer and we're going to cut this flag in half, and I'll show you why in just a second. Okay, so we're going to line this up so that we are going to cut straight down the center of that gold piece. Okay, so then we end up with 2/2 of a flag. And now we can assemble the page. All right, so we're going to grab this guy, add some, I'm going to just use repositionable adhesive, right, just in case we have to pick it up and move it around. Repositionable adhesive is your friend when it comes to this, and I would add it on each one of these little strips, just a little, because I don't want to have to fight those when I go to put my page protector on. All right, so we're going to go just a hair below the top edge of our page and go ahead and adhere that across the top. All right, now I'm going to take the other half of my flag that's already on here, and this is going to go in the center. And I would start with the narrow end down here and put it right against the jeeping. And work your way carefully up, like so. Okay. Then you're going to do the same thing with these guys. We're going to add the adhesive on the back. These guys are going to go up the outer edge of the page. Getting adhesive all over my mat. Okay, so the other one, the other half of that flag is going to go on the far edge of the left hand layout. And I'm going to start this one from the top because my tail is not working with me here. There we go. Okay. And if you wanted to, you could come back in here with some pens and outline these flags just a little bit. It might give them a little more definition. But there is my version of the canopy. Now what I need is some mats. So let's measure. I did trim these up because I was combining these photos. You can see it's more of a panorama. It's two photos together. So this is going to be 4 inches. I'm going to cut this, and this is going to be a very, very thin border, but that's okay. I don't need a huge border. I just need a little bit of one. So there we've got that guy. I'm going to cut, let's see. I think this other one needs to be 4, is this 4 inches? Yeah, that is 4 inches. I think I'm going to trim that down, trim that photo down just a little bit so that I can make this mat 4 inches. So I'll just take a little bit of the sky off so that we can add a border, and my photo just moved, so that's not helpful. Let's try that again. When you put your photos together like this in a little bit of a collage, sometimes they want to move around, so just try to be careful. Okay. trim this so the edges match. Get this one on. Alright, now I have one more strip of 4-inch paper. I can either well, we could cut this one down just a little bit and make that work. I don't want to cut my daughter out of the frame, so we'll do like this, and then we'll measure and go I have a little bit I could add, so let's just do that. I'm going to use every little bit that I can of this paper, and I don't have the other sheet because I used it on another layout, so I'm going to trim this, and then we'll use what's left for this layout, or this photo. This photo, though, I need to cut down a little bit. It's right now it's a 4x4, so we're going to make it a 3 3/4 by 3 3/4, and that way 4 inches of matting paper will work to create a frame. And we can add this paper to finish the frame off. Voila! And then we still have just a little bit left and everything got matted. I love it! Okay, so I need to trim this one. Perfect. So this is Dumbo. This is Dumbo's Carousel, if you are familiar with that. And Dumbo, and then the big whale that you sail, you float under in a boat to get to the Storybook Land. I think that's what they call it, isn't it? Storybook Land. So maybe we'll do like center that a little bit more. I can put a title across my banner at the top with some letters from my Cricut, which I have not cut yet. And let's see, I had some embellishments I pulled out and thought maybe I would use, so let's see where we might put those. I'm going to speed this up since this has already gotten to be a long video, and we'll just get to the end real quick like. I don't know about that. Okay, take a look at the final photo. I'm going to think about that for just a minute, but I think this is the way it's going to lay out. So kind of different for me, kind of fun. I hope this has been helpful. I hope it'll be useful for you and you can make that curve as drastic as you want to, depending on how you want it to be. Maybe it would have been helpful if I had made it just a little bit more obvious, but I think it'll work for now. Alright, so I moved a few things, and I like having the pictures kind of at a slant. I feel like it adds a little bit more of the whimsy of this area of Disneyland. And I reoriented my embellishments as well, and I like this better. Let me know what you think. I hope you have a wonderful day. I'm sorry this layout took so long, but I think it was worth it. It's a fun one. And until next time, I hope you have many more creative moments. Thanks for joining me. Have a great day.